Montana Territory, 1875. The autumn sun beat down on the dusty trail as the stagecoach rumbled westward, its wooden wheels grinding against the rocky path. Inside sat three sisters, each with their own dreams of a new beginning. The eldest, 23-year-old Clara Kincaid, pressed her forehead against the window, her chestnut hair pinned neatly beneath a modest blue bonnet that matched her travel-worn dress. The creased telegram in her gloved hand promised safety, opportunity, and perhaps even happiness in the frontier town of Silver Creek. Clara had long ago convinced herself that romance was a luxury she could not afford. Not after losing both parents to influenza 2 years prior, leaving her responsible for her younger sisters. The frontier was a place for survival and duty, not for foolish daydreams of love. Her sisters needed her strength, her practicality, her unwavering focus. She had buried her own desires beneath layers of responsibility, telling herself repeatedly that her own happiness was a secondary concern. "How much farther?" whispered 19-year-old Hannah, the middle sister, her face pale from the journey. "Not long now," Clara replied, squeezing her sister's hand while cradling 17-year-old Abigail who slept against her shoulder. "The driver said we should reach Silver Creek by nightfall. Our escort should be waiting there." The stagecoach had been organized by their late father's business associate in Boston, a kindly merchant who had arranged for them to be safely transported to Silver Creek, where a teaching position awaited Clara at the newly established schoolhouse. But the West was dangerous for unaccompanied women, particularly ones carrying their entire inheritance in a locked chest beneath their feet, the precious cargo mentioned in the telegraph to their awaiting escorts. Clara glanced down at the chest. Inside lay the family silver, her mother's jewelry, and enough money to establish a new life. These treasures would secure their future, but only if they reached Silver Creek safely. She had heard too many stories of bandits and outlaws preying on vulnerable travelers. The thought tightened her chest with anxiety. "I hope our escorts are handsome cowboys," Hannah whispered with a mischievous smile. "Perhaps you will finally meet a gentleman worthy of your attention." Clara shook her head firmly. "I have no interest in cowboys or any men, handsome or otherwise. My only concern is establishing our new home and ensuring you both receive proper educations." As the stage rounded a bend, a shot rang out, followed by the driver's panicked shout. The coach lurched violently as the horses reared, throwing the sisters against each other. Clara instinctively wrapped her arms around Abigail as Hannah screamed. "Bandits!" the driver yelled. "Hold tight." More gunshots echoed through the air. Clara's heart pounded as she clutched her sisters. This was exactly what she had feared, that they would never reach the safety promised in Silver Creek. Suddenly, answering gunfire came from ahead. Through the dust-streaked window, Clara glimpsed riders approaching at full gallop, 3 men on horseback charging toward the stage. For a terrifying moment, she thought more bandits had arrived, until she saw the lead rider expertly fire at something behind the coach. The bandits' shots grew more distant, and the stagecoach gradually slowed to a stop. "Miss Kincaid," a deep voice called out moments later. "Ladies, are you harmed?" Clara opened the door with trembling hands to find herself looking up into the most striking blue eyes she had ever seen. They belonged to a young man of perhaps 25, whose broad-shouldered frame blocked the setting sun. His face was clean-shaven but weather-bronzed, with a strong jaw and a concerned expression. A white Stetson sat atop sunlightened brown hair, and dust covered his practical riding clothes. "I'm Riley Porter," he said, tipping his hat. "Your escort to Silver Creek. Looks like we arrived just in time." Clara managed a grateful nod as her sisters peered around her. "You have our sincere gratitude, Mr. Porter. These are my sisters, Hannah and Abigail." He nodded respectfully to each sister before his gaze returned to Clara. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, perhaps, or unexpected interest, before his expression returned to professional concern. "Those men have been preying on stages for weeks," he explained, helping Clara down from the coach. "They'll likely return with reinforcements. We should move quickly." 2 other cowboys rode up, introducing themselves as Luke and Benjamin, Riley's fellow ranch hands from the Silver Creek Ranch where they worked for owner Samuel Davis. They quickly secured the sisters' trunks, including the precious chest that Clara insisted stay within her sight. "You can ride with me, Miss Kincaid," Riley said, extending his hand. "Your sisters will be safe with my friends." Clara hesitated. She had never ridden astride a horse with a man she had just met. But the urgent situation left little room for propriety. "The stage is too damaged to continue," Riley explained, reading her hesitation. "And we need to reach town before dark." With reluctance, Clara allowed Riley to help her onto his horse, settling uncomfortably before him in the saddle. As they began the ride to Silver Creek, she couldn't ignore how his arm brushed her waist when he reached for the reins, or the warmth of his chest against her back. "I apologize for the impropriety," he said softly near her ear, his voice surprisingly gentle for a man so capable with a gun. "But your safety comes first. Your father's friend, Mr. Thompson, was explicit in his instructions. The 3 Kincaid sisters and their belongings were to be guarded with our lives." Clara stiffened. "You knew our father?" "No, ma'am. But Mr. Davis respects Mr. Thompson's business dealings. When the telegram came requesting protection for 3 sisters looking to start fresh in Silver Creek, Mr. Davis assigned us to ensure you arrived safely." As they rode, Clara learned that Riley had come west 5 years earlier, escaping a family tragedy in Pennsylvania. He'd worked his way up from stable hand to trusted foreman at Silver Creek Ranch, overseeing cattle operations for the widowed Mr. Davis. "The West isn't always kind," Riley said as they crested a hill revealing a small settlement nestled in the valley below. "But it rewards those willing to work hard and stay honest." "I'm no stranger to hard work, Mr. Porter," Clara replied. "And my sisters and I have not come west seeking an easy life." Riley's chuckle rumbled against her back. "I believe you, Miss Kincaid. Though I suspect Silver Creek isn't quite ready for the force of nature that you 3 sisters appear to be." Something in his tone, respect mingled with admiration, warmed Clara unexpectedly. But she quickly reminded herself that such feelings were dangerous distractions. She had not traveled across the country to find romance. She had come to build a secure future for her family. Still, as they rode into town with the setting sun painting the mountains gold and purple, Clara couldn't help noticing how the townspeople nodded respectfully to Riley. Children called his name, storekeepers waved, and even the town marshal tipped his hat in greeting. This was a man who had earned the community's trust, something Clara had not expected to find in a frontier cowboy. The sisters were settled into rooms above the general store, temporary lodgings until they could find a more permanent home. The precious chest was locked safely in the town bank's vault, and Clara was introduced to the school board members who had hired her based on her excellent credentials. That night, as her sisters slept in the adjoining room, Clara stood by the window looking out at the moonlit main street. Silver Creek was smaller than she had imagined, rougher around the edges, but there was something promising about it. For the first time since leaving Boston, she felt they might actually build a life here. A movement below caught her attention. Riley Porter stood in the shadows across the street, watching the general store. He was standing guard, she realized with surprise. Even after delivering them safely to town, he was ensuring their protection through the night. Clara's carefully constructed walls wavered slightly. Perhaps there were men of honor even in this wild country. But she quickly reinforced her resolve. One decent cowboy didn't change the fact that she had responsibilities that left no room for romantic entanglements. The following weeks brought a flurry of activity as Clara established herself as the town's schoolteacher and found a small but sturdy house for her family. The townspeople were welcoming, if curious about the 3 Eastern sisters who spoke properly and dressed fashionably despite the frontier conditions. Riley Porter kept a respectful distance, though Clara often sensed his watchful presence. He would tip his hat when they passed on the street, inquire after her sister's well-being, and occasionally bring news from the ranch where he worked. Each brief encounter left Clara unsettled in ways she refused to examine too closely. One evening, as Clara closed the schoolhouse after a long day of teaching, she found Riley waiting outside with his horse. "Mr. Davis asked me to deliver this," he said, handing her a basket. "Vegetables from the ranch garden. He thought you and your sisters might appreciate fresh produce." Clara accepted the basket with a polite smile. "Please thank Mr. Davis for his kindness." Riley nodded but didn't immediately leave. Instead, he shifted his weight from one foot to another, unusually hesitant for a man who typically exuded quiet confidence. "Miss Kincaid, the town's hosting a harvest dance this Saturday. I wondered if you and your sisters might attend." His blue eyes met hers directly. "I'd be honored to escort you." The invitation caught Clara unprepared. She had noticed several townswomen eyeing Riley with interest and had assumed he had his choice of local girls. Why would he seek her company, a prim schoolteacher devoted to her responsibilities? My sisters would certainly enjoy such an event, she replied carefully. But I'm not one for dancing, Mr. Porter. Something like disappointment flickered in his expression before he nodded. I understand. Still, it would be good for you all to meet more of the community. I could escort all three of you as friends. The sincerity in his voice weakened Clara's resolve. Perhaps attending together would be acceptable if positioned as a friendly gesture rather than a romantic overture. Very well, she conceded. For my sister's sake. The harvest dance transformed the town hall into a warm haven of lantern light, autumn decorations, and lively fiddle music. Hannah and Abigail whirled across the floor with various young men, while Clara watched from the sidelines, content to observe her sister's happiness. Riley appeared at her side, offering a cup of punch. They're fitting in well, he remarked, nodding toward her sisters. Yes, Clara agreed. They've adapted more quickly than I expected. And you, Miss Kincaid? Are you finding your place here? The question was unexpectedly perceptive, touching on the doubts Clara had been harboring. She was respected as a teacher, but she still felt like an outsider, too educated for the frontier, too dedicated to her responsibilities to form real friendships. The school keeps me quite busy, she deflected. Riley studied her for a moment. You know, not everything in the West is about survival. There's joy to be found here, too. Before she could respond, the music changed to a slower waltz, and Riley extended his hand. One dance. For the sake of community integration, of course. His teasing smile broke through her defenses, and Clara found herself accepting his hand. As he led her onto the dance floor, she was surprised by his grace. This cowboy, who rode with such ease and handled a gun with confidence, moved with unexpected elegance. You dance well for a ranch foreman, she observed. My mother insisted on proper lessons before I left home, he explained. She said a gentleman should know how to dance no matter where life takes him. She sounds like a wise woman. She was. The past tense hung between them, and Riley's expression grew distant. Lost her and my father to a house fire 5 years ago. That's when I came west. Nothing left for me back home. The revelation of his loss created an unexpected connection. Clara found herself sharing the story of her parents' deaths and the responsibility that had fallen to her. That's a heavy burden to carry alone, Riley said softly as they moved across the floor. I'm not alone. I have my sisters. Taking care of others isn't the same as being taken care of yourself, he replied, his insight striking uncomfortably close to Clara's hidden fears. When the dance ended, something had shifted between them. Clara felt seen in a way she hadn't experienced since before her parents' deaths. Not as the responsible older sister or the proper schoolteacher, but simply as herself, with all her hidden doubts and unspoken dreams. That dance marked the beginning of a cautious friendship. Riley would appear at the schoolhouse to walk Clara home, bearing books from Mr. Davis's substantial library or news from the cattle drives. Clara found herself looking forward to these encounters, though she reminded herself that friendship was all she could afford. Winter settled over Silver Creek, bringing heavy snows and bitter cold. The sisters' small house was often chilly despite their best efforts with the wood stove. One particularly frigid morning, Clara arrived at the schoolhouse to find Riley stacking firewood beside the building. Mr. Porter, what are you doing? He straightened, brushing snow from his coat. Noticed your woodpile was getting low. Brought some from the ranch. The simple act of kindness touched Clara deeply. You didn't need to do that. Wanted to, he replied with a shrug. Besides, can't have our schoolteacher freezing. The children need you. Before she could thank him properly, he added, I've brought wood for your house too. It's stacked around back. As he turned to go, Clara impulsively caught his arm. Would you join us for dinner tonight? It's the least I can offer in return. Riley's smile warmed her more than any fire could. I'd be honored, Miss Kincaid. That evening marked another shift in their relationship as Riley joined the sisters for a simple but hearty meal. Clara saw how easily he conversed with Hannah about her interest in botany and listened seriously to Abigail's dreams of becoming a writer. He belonged at their table somehow, his presence filling a gap Clara hadn't acknowledged existed. As winter deepened, Riley became a regular visitor at the Kincaid home. He taught the sisters practical frontier skills, how to predict weather changes, properly maintain their stove, and identify animal tracks in the snow. In return, Clara shared books from her collection, engaging him in discussions that revealed his natural intelligence despite his limited formal education. Yet Clara maintained an emotional distance, reminding herself that her primary duty was to her sisters. She could not risk their security by indulging in feelings for a cowboy, no matter how honorable he seemed. The town gossips, however, had already decided that Riley Porter had set his sights on the schoolteacher. Clara endured knowing looks from townswomen and teasing from her sisters, who had grown fond of the young foreman. "He cares for you," Hannah observed one evening after Riley had departed. "And I believe you care for him as well." "My feelings aren't important," Clara insisted. "Our security here must come first." Hannah's expression grew serious. "Clara, you've sacrificed everything for us since Mother and Father died. But they wouldn't want you to sacrifice the chance at happiness too." The words haunted Clara through the night. Was she using duty as an excuse to protect herself from the vulnerability of love? The question remained unanswered as she drifted into troubled sleep. The next day brought startling news. A telegram arrived from Boston. Mr. Thompson, their father's business associate who had arranged their journey west, had died suddenly. More alarming was the second telegram that followed, from a Mr. James Harrington, claiming to be the executor of Thompson's estate and demanding the return of funds he alleged Thompson had mistakenly provided to the Kincaid sisters. Clara knew this was false. The money in their precious chest had been their inheritance, not Thompson's funds. But proving this from the frontier, with their parents' documents back in Boston, seemed impossible. "He's lying," Clara told the town lawyer after showing him the telegrams. "But I fear he may have legal means to pressure us, especially with Mr. Thompson gone." The lawyer's expression was grave. "If he files claims in Boston and has any influence with the banks or courts, he could indeed cause trouble. Frontier towns like ours often defer to Eastern legal authorities." Clara felt her carefully built security crumbling. If Harrington managed to claim their funds, everything she had worked for would be lost. When Riley learned of the situation, his reaction surprised her. Rather than offering empty reassurances, he arrived the next morning with Mr. Davis himself, a distinguished older gentleman who rarely came to town. "Miss Kincaid," Mr. Davis said after introductions, "Riley has explained your predicament. I had business dealings with Thompson myself over the years, and I'm familiar with this Harrington fellow. He's been trying to take over Thompson's business interests through questionable means." Hope flared in Clara. "Then you believe he's making false claims?" "I'm certain of it," Davis nodded. "I've taken the liberty of telegraphing my attorney in Boston. He'll investigate and counter any legal maneuvers Harrington attempts." Relief flooded through Clara. "Mr. Davis, I don't know how to thank you." The older man waved away her gratitude. "No need. Any friend of Riley's is a friend of mine." His knowing glance between them made Clara blush. After Davis departed, Riley remained. "There's something else you should know," he said, his expression unusually serious. "Harrington doesn't limit himself to legal channels. He's known to employ more direct methods when crossed." "You mean violence?" Clara whispered, thinking of her sisters. Riley nodded grimly. "I've arranged for additional security around your house and the schoolhouse, and I'll be staying in town until this is resolved." The protective gesture touched Clara deeply, yet she protested. "You can't neglect your duties at the ranch. Mr. Davis agrees this takes priority," Riley interrupted firmly. "I'm not leaving you and your sisters unprotected." For the next 2 weeks, Riley was a constant presence in their lives. He escorted Clara to and from the schoolhouse, checked on Hannah at the general store where she had begun working, and accompanied Abigail to her writing club meetings. At night, Clara often spotted him keeping watch near their home, regardless of weather. His dedication was undeniable, and Clara found her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. Each time their eyes met, each small touch as he helped her over icy patches in the road, each conversation that revealed more of his character, all combined to challenge her belief that love was a luxury she couldn't afford. One evening, as a blizzard howled outside, Clara found Riley adding wood to their stove after dinner. In the lamplight, with snow melting on his shoulders, he looked so at home in their small house that her heart ached with unacknowledged feelings. "You should go before the storm worsens," she said, though she wished he would stay. Riley straightened, brushing his hands on his trousers. "I'll be fine. More concerned about you three staying warm through the night. We have plenty of wood thanks to you, she assured him. Riley. She rarely used his first name, and it felt intimate on her lips. You've done so much for us. I don't know if we can ever repay you. His eyes met hers, intense and honest. I don't want repayment, Clara. The use of her given name sent warmth through her that had nothing to do with the fire. They stood close, too close for propriety, but Clara couldn't bring herself to step away. What do you want? She asked softly. For a moment, she thought he might kiss her. Instead, he gently took her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. I want you to trust that not everything precious needs to be guarded so fiercely, he said. Some treasures grow stronger when shared. Before she could respond, a sharp knock at the door broke the moment. Riley immediately reached for the gun at his hip as he moved toward the entrance. Stay back, he warned Clara before calling out. Who's there? Telegram for Miss Kincaid, came the muffled reply. The message, delivered by the nervous young telegraph operator through the barely opened door, was from Mr. Davis's Boston attorney. Harrington had indeed filed legal claims, but they had been temporarily blocked. However, Harrington had left Boston suddenly, his destination unknown. Riley's expression darkened as he read the telegram. He's coming here, he said with certainty. Men like Harrington don't give up easily. That night, despite Clara's protests, Riley insisted on sleeping in the chair by their front door. In the morning, she found him still there, vigilant despite the discomfort. News from the stagecoach driver confirmed Riley's prediction. A man matching Harrington's description had boarded a westbound stage in Denver, due to arrive in Silver Creek within days. The town marshal offered his support, but with limited deputies and a wide territory to cover, his protection would be minimal. Riley gathered trusted ranch hands to establish a rotating watch over the Kincaid home. This isn't your fight, Clara told him as they walked from the schoolhouse 2 days later. It became my fight the moment he threatened you, Riley replied simply. His unflinching loyalty broke through Clara's final defenses. That evening, after her sisters had retired, she found Riley on their small porch despite the bitter cold. You'll freeze out here, she said, bringing him a steaming cup of coffee. He accepted it with a grateful smile. I've weathered worse. Clara sat beside him on the porch step, closer than propriety allowed. Why are you doing this, Riley? The truth. For a long moment, he stared into the darkness. When I came west, I believed the frontier was no place for attachments. That caring for others was a weakness I couldn't afford. He turned to face her, his eyes sincere. Then I met a schoolteacher who crossed a continent to protect her sisters, who built a life from nothing, who faces each challenge with unfailing courage, and I realized I was wrong. The confession hung in the cold air between them. I've been wrong too, Clara admitted softly. I convinced myself that love was a luxury secondary to security, that opening my heart would somehow betray my responsibility to my sisters. Riley set his cup aside and tentatively reached for her hand. And now I wonder if perhaps love isn't a distraction from security, but the foundation of it. Their fingers intertwined as Clara allowed herself to acknowledge what her heart had known for months, that this honorable young cowboy had become essential to her happiness. The moment was shattered by the sound of breaking glass from inside the house, followed by Abigail's frightened scream. Riley was on his feet instantly, gun drawn as he burst through the door with Clara close behind. They found a brick on the floor of the sisters' bedroom, wrapped in a menacing note. Return what belongs to me, or next time it won't be a brick. Harrington, Riley growled, checking the windows before gathering the terrified younger sisters into the main room. But he's not supposed to arrive until tomorrow, Hannah said, trembling. He must have taken an earlier stage or private transportation, Riley replied grimly. Clara, take your sisters to the back room. Lock the door and don't open it for anyone but me. What are you going to do? Clara asked, fear evident in her voice. Riley checked his gun with practiced efficiency. I'm going to find the marshal and my men. Harrington won't be alone. Men like him never do their own dirty work. Before he could leave, Clara grabbed his arm. Be careful. Their eyes met in silent communication, volumes of unspoken feelings passing between them. Then Riley was gone, disappearing into the night. The hours that followed were the longest of Clara's life. She sat with her frightened sisters in the small back bedroom, a shotgun across her lap. Every creak of the house, Every gust of wind against the windows made them start. Just past midnight, the sound of horses approaching broke the silence. Clara peered cautiously through the curtains to see several riders stopping outside their home. In the dim moonlight, she could make out Riley among them, alongside the marshal and two other men she recognized as ranch hands. A sharp knock at the door nearly stopped her heart until Riley's voice called out, "Clara? It's me." Relief flooded through her as she unlocked the bedroom door and hurried to let him in. The moment the door opened, she knew something was wrong. Riley's face was tight with pain, and he held his left arm awkwardly against his side. "You're hurt," she gasped, pulling him inside as the marshal and ranch hands took up positions around the house. "It's nothing," Riley insisted, though his pallor suggested otherwise. "Caught up with one of Harrington's men at the saloon. He didn't take kindly to my questions." Clara led him to a chair and carefully helped remove his coat, revealing a blood-stained shirt underneath. The knife wound on his upper arm wasn't deep, but had bled considerably. As she cleaned and bandaged the injury, Riley explained what they had learned. Harrington had arrived with 3 hired guns, making inquiries about the Kincaid sisters and their stolen property. They had taken rooms at the hotel, but were likely planning something before morning. "The marshal sent for additional men from the next town," Riley said, "but they won't arrive until tomorrow afternoon." "What do we do?" Hannah asked, her voice small with fear. Riley's expression was resolute despite his injury. "We get you somewhere safer. Mr. Davis has offered his ranch. It's well-staffed and easier to defend than a house in town." Clara hesitated. "The roads will be dangerous in the dark." "More dangerous to stay here," Riley countered. "Harrington knows where you live. The ranch is the last place he'd expect, and we have men watching the road out of town." With no better options, Clara quickly helped her sisters pack essential items. Within 30 minutes, they were being escorted to waiting horses, the precious chest of inheritance money secured on a pack animal. The ride to Silver Creek Ranch was tense and silent. Every shadow seemed to hide potential danger. Every sound caused them to stiffen in alarm. Riley rode alongside Clara, his injured arm clearly causing him pain though he made no complaint. By dawn, they reached the sprawling main house of Silver Creek Ranch, where Mr. Davis welcomed them with genuine concern. The sisters were settled into comfortable guest rooms, the ranch hands positioned as sentries around the property. Clara found herself unable to rest despite exhaustion. She wandered onto the wide porch where she found Riley standing watch, his bandaged arm now properly treated by the ranch's cook, who had medical experience. "You should be resting," she admonished gently. "So should you," he replied with a tired smile. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching the sunrise paint the distant mountains gold and pink. "I've been thinking about what happens after this is resolved," Riley said finally. "About my future. About us." Clara's heart quickened. "I've been thinking about that too. This life, the ranch, Silver Creek, it's not Boston. It's rough and sometimes dangerous. But it's honest, and there's beauty in it." His eyes met hers. "I've built something here, Clara. Not much yet, but enough to offer a good life. A life I'd like to share, if you're willing." The sun crested the horizon as Clara realized they stood at a crossroads. Everything she thought she knew about duty and security had transformed in the months since arriving in Silver Creek. What once seemed like strength, her isolation behind walls of responsibility, now felt like fear. "I came west believing I had to choose between security and happiness," she said softly. "Between duty to my sisters and a life of my own. But you've shown me they aren't separate paths at all." Hope dawned in Riley's eyes as he took her hands in his. "Is that a yes?" Clara smiled, feeling truly unguarded for the first time in years. "It's a yes, Riley Porter. Once we deal with Harrington, I would very much like to build that life with you." The moment of joy was interrupted by the sound of approaching riders. Riley immediately pushed Clara behind him, drawing his gun as ranch hands emerged from various positions with weapons ready. The tension broke when they recognized the town marshal at the head of the group. Behind him rode several deputies and, surprisingly, a man in an expensive Eastern suit secured to his saddle with ropes. "Found this gentleman and his friends trying to leave town before dawn," the marshal announced, pulling the bound man from his horse. "Seems Mr. Harrington here was in such a hurry after hearing we were looking for him that he left most of his belongings at the hotel, including some very interesting documents." The captured man glared at them with undisguised hatred as the marshal continued. Letters detailing how he planned to fraudulently claim the Kincaid inheritance, forged papers, even a list of men he hired to intimidate you ladies. Relief washed over Clara. His men. All accounted for, the marshal assured her. 2 in my jail, 1 with a bullet in his shoulder from your cowboy here when he tried to resist. Mr. Davis stepped forward, his expression severe as he addressed Harrington. I've taken the liberty of telegraphing the authorities in Boston with evidence of your schemes. They're quite interested in speaking with you about several other complaints against you as well. Harrington's face paled as he realized the extent of his defeat. The following days brought the official resolution they had hoped for. Telegrams from Boston confirmed that Harrington would face multiple charges of fraud and extortion. The Kincaid inheritance was legally secured, with documents proving their rightful ownership delivered by Mr. Davis's attorney. With the threat removed, life in Silver Creek quickly returned to normal, with one significant change. The announcement of Clara Kincaid's engagement to Riley Porter became the talk of the town, with most claiming they had predicted it from the moment the schoolteacher arrived. They're saying I set my cap for you from the beginning. Clara laughed as she walked with Riley along the creek that gave the town its name, enjoying a rare afternoon away from responsibilities. Didn't you? He teased, pulling her closer. I distinctly recall you swooning into my arms the moment we met. I did no such thing, she protested, though her laughter betrayed her delight in their easy companionship. If I recall correctly, you were the one who could barely speak when helping me from that stagecoach. Riley's smile softened as he turned to face her. Can you blame me? The most beautiful woman I'd ever seen, with the courage to cross a continent and the determination to build a new life. How could I not fall in love with you on sight? Clara's heart swelled with happiness, and I thought cowboys were supposed to be rough and uncivilized. Oh, I can be plenty rough when needed, he replied with a wink that made her blush. But for you, Clara Kincaid, I'll always find my most civilized manners. As spring turned to summer, Clara found herself embracing the life she had once thought impossible. Hannah had become apprenticed to the local doctor, discovering an aptitude for medicine. Abigail's stories had caught the attention of a publisher who visited from Denver. And Clara herself divided her time between the schoolhouse and helping Riley with his plans to purchase land adjacent to Silver Creek Ranch, where they would build their own home after their wedding. The wedding itself was the social event of the year in Silver Creek. Held on a perfect June day beneath flowering trees on Mr. Davis's ranch, it brought together the entire community. Clara wore her mother's restored wedding dress, carrying wildflowers gathered by her sisters that morning. Riley, handsome in a new suit, watched her approach with undisguised adoration. Their vows were simple but heartfelt, promises of partnership and love that acknowledged the challenges of frontier life while celebrating the strength they found in each other. I once believed the West was no place for love, Riley said softly as he slipped the ring onto Clara's finger. That a man needed to stand alone to survive. You taught me that real strength comes from what we build together. Clara's eyes shimmered with tears as she responded. And I thought happiness was a luxury I couldn't afford. You showed me that love isn't a distraction from duty, it's the purpose behind it. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, cheers erupted from the gathered townspeople. The celebration continued well into the night, with dancing, feasting, and countless well wishes for the couple who had found each other against all odds. That night, as stars blanketed the sky above their temporary home, a cozy cabin on the ranch that would be theirs until their own house was built, Clara stood on the porch with her husband's arms wrapped securely around her. Happy, Mrs. Porter? Riley murmured against her hair. Happier than I ever thought possible, she replied honestly, turning in his embrace to face him. You know, when we first arrived in Silver Creek, I was terrified we'd made a mistake, that the West would be too harsh, too dangerous for us to build a life here. Riley smiled, tracing her cheek gently with his fingertips. And now, Clara looked past him to the silhouettes of mountains against the starlit sky, to the ranch buildings where her sisters slept safely, to the community that had embraced them as their own. Now I know that treasure isn't always what you bring with you, she said. Sometimes it's what you find along the way. Sometimes it's who you become when you're brave enough to open your heart. Riley's kiss was tender, a promise of all the days to come. Welcome home, Clara. As they entered their cabin together, Clara knew with absolute certainty that her most precious cargo had never been in that chest of silver and money. It had been the capacity for love she'd carried west. The love she now shared freely with the cowboy who had shown her that even in the wild frontier, the greatest security came from two hearts joined as one.